I get very excited whenever there is a disruptor in the slate of movies that release in Hindi cinema week in and week out. Storylines and projects that totally come out of syllabus and become competent examples of how filmmaking and theatrical distribution can be a reality for artists beyond the few people we assume to be in positions of power. Devotional movies like Krishnavataram are tricky to review because there is a sentiment attached to them that makes people resist any form of criticism. But I think it's important to point out both the merits and demerits of this tale respectively in order to justify the title of this video and the purpose of this channel, to review movies. I'm going to be respectful regarding the material and what it sheds light on. I hope all of you can partake in the same, because the assumption that this movie is the only answer that beautifully tells the tale of revered gods and that it can be told in tight and efficient budgets is far from the truth. It's way more nuanced than that. Krishnavataram is directed by Hardik Gajjar. One of the main reasons why I was excited for this project, as the director has proven his mettle as a storyteller on television, especially with his popular TV series Devon Ke Dev Mahadev that made Mohit Raina a household name. The film showcases the life of Lord Krishna, played by Siddharth Gupta, from Vrindavan to Dwarka, transitioning to the commencement of the Mahabharat that takes him to Hastinapur, and then his return to Dwarka after the Kurukshetra war. That itself is a lot of material for a movie that is 2 hours and 25 minutes long. The movie sheds light on his romantic relationships, specifically with Radha, played by Sushmita Bhatt in Vrindavan, his marriage to Rukmini, played by Niva Shayani Krishnan, and the impact that this first marriage has on Satyabhama, played by Sanskruti Jayana. The major role among the 3 women in this tale is played by Satyabhama, especially her fondness for Lord Krishna, her palpable jealousy seeing his union to Rukmini, and hearing stories of Radha in Vrindavan, and how she also aids Lord Krishna in the politics and conflict taking place in Dwarka, specifically with the Syamantak Mani and taking down the Asur Narakasur. There is a lot to pack in and truthfully tell you about my experience as I saw this tale last night on the big screen. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Krishnavataram Part 1 Hridayam in theaters or not. Production design and costumes. Your observations as the film progresses makes you conclude that the makers have definitely made the most of the tight budget they were working with. This is especially true for the interior shots of the film that present the handsome riches of Dwarka as an empire with palatial palaces. The grand nature of it all represents the abundant wealth that they possess. This is especially true when Lord Krishna is found addressing his ministers, or Satyabhama is found waiting patiently for Lord Krishna to return from Draupadi's Swayamvar. The makers consciously attempt to perform and carry out most of the drama within the confines of the palaces, and this is where the film is its most interesting and beautiful self, as the film and its ultimate outcome is largely dependent on the performances and the written material of the characters. When it is about the scale and technical proficiency, that is where the film absolutely fumbles. I'll dive deep on that just a little later, but if I were to praise the film, it will be on the production design by Chokas and Swarika Bhardwaj and the costume design by Nidhi Yash. The frames are inundated with gold. There is this rich and saturated texture to the frames, especially when dealing with the interpersonal relationships of the characters or the conflict that arises within Dwarka, where you can see the attention to detail attempted with each fabric and jewelry worn by the characters. This is especially true for the primary characters in Dwarka, namely Lord Krishna, Rukmini and Satyabhama. Regal and grand is an understatement in which, at least visually, the main characters are presented. Rudimentary CGI and use of AI. Whenever the movie focuses on wide shots to show the grand scale of an empire like Dwarka, presents Lord Krishna and Radha being merry in Vrindavan, or presents battle sequences, it genuinely becomes distracting to watch. This is not the case where the green screen is just obvious. It's poorly rendered and one can't help but point it out. The makers try to mask this as much as possible by primarily focusing on close-up shots of characters and employing a bokeh effect by which the background gets blurred, but through several of the shots, you just had to attest to the dismissive criticism that visually in many regards, especially in grand sequences outside of Dwarka, the film does look like a TV production. The opening credits of the movie also slightly disheartened me, as it is entirely AI generated, while passing through the formative chapters of Lord Krishna, his childhood and his naughty ways of stealing makhan, and how he was raised by his foster parents Nand Maharaj and Yashoda. All of this in the opening credits is presented with a montage that is clearly AI generated, and for a movie that wants the audience to root for it to be the underdog, for it is the disruptor in the films coming out week in and week out, this slightly broke my heart. I am absolutely not opposed to the integration of AI as technology, but I believe that it should be a part of the visuals we see in the frame frame versus entirely being dependent on it for everything in the frame. The most distracting use of CGI, where it's undeniably poorly rendered, is the action sequences in this movie, where it genuinely makes you facepalm, and I will cover that in a few minutes. Score, music, and structure. I want to prepare you already, if you are extremely keen on watching this movie, that this is essentially a stage play set up as a musical. This movie presents the story of Lord Krishna through a narrator played by Jackie Shroff in the modern day, taking the shape of a prologue before the play starts. If I were to genuinely do a percentage breakdown, then I believe the movie will have the same percentage of dialogues as it has songs. Every dialogue or scene shared between the characters is followed by a song and dance. The dialogues are not written in rhyme, but the impact of the scene is immediately followed by a song conveying what the character is feeling due to said interaction. This leads to making the structure of the screenplay quite predictable, but the benefit is that the music is genuinely soulful and beautiful in many instances. When you have a music label like Saregama associated with the movie, you have some of the best singers at your disposal. So you have talents like Shreya Ghoshal, Sonu Nigam, Sunidhi Chauhan, and Javed Ali lending their vocals to the beautiful numbers, and this really leads to the creation of some gems. A song that genuinely mesmerized me, for it was exceptionally captured with its choreography, includes the number Krishna Govinda, where the actor, Sanskruti Jayana, playing Satyabhama, dances gracefully. The one that hit me the most, however, for just the beautiful lyrics written by Irshad Kamil and the vocals of someone evergreen like Sonu Nigam, is the song title Ant Mein Aaramb. And I just did a double take thinking on what a beautiful long-standing career the likes of Sonu Nigam and Shreya Ghoshal have had. The music by Irshad Kamil is genuinely one of the highlights of this movie, taking the shape of becoming a musical in its truest sense. There is one other aspect of why I create a parallel with this film being a musical, is because the score is associated with every dialogue. It almost mimics having a musical band right next to the scenes, almost integrating the sounds of the tabla, the flute, or the shank as a reaction to the emotions of each dialogue delivered. It's very dramatic in form, and I believe it was important to make you aware of the kind of film you are stepping in for. Very poor action choreography and editing. The most distracting and poor element of this movie is its adamant nature to present action choreography and battle scenes that just requires a lot more care, and the sequences do a lot of disservice to what the film did right. There is a chariot race that is presented in the first half where the makers try to compensate for the poor CGI backdrops by mainly focusing on close-ups of the characters, but the chariot race never seems immersive or for you to ever be on the edge of your seat. The editing is extremely choppy, and one does not feel exhilarated as if they were watching something nail-biting. In the quest to find the Syamantak Mani, Lord Krishna is presented as fighting, and it is one of the most poorly choreographed and edited action scenes you'll see. Points of combat are inundated with choppy editing, and the ultimate reveal kicking in that he may be striking on a divine entity should be this grand, overwhelming reveal, but it is extremely substandard in its execution. The worst case of a sequence so poorly executed that I actually got slightly embarrassed on how it was approved on the editing table was the battle with Narakasur. The sequence is presented in this poorly lit CGI backdrop with the Asur looking like a poor render of a video game character, and the action choreography is extremely choppy, ending the battle so abruptly and so fast that the stakes never felt like they were ever high. What's interesting is that the movie is titled Part 1 Hridayam. The heart and soul of the movie, especially on the relationships of Lord Krishna, are its strong suit, and everything else is where the film falters the most. This is where the budget, the lack of attention to detail in the action becomes glaringly obvious. Huge potential with the cast. I was impressed by most of the performances of the ensemble cast. I'll speak about them in ascending order of preferences, but Radha, played by Sushmita Bhatt, specifically her dubbing and performance was something that I had trouble adjusting to. She has this husky tone in this movie, which sometimes is tough to decipher on what is being said, and while the nature with which she is besotted at the very sight of Lord Krishna is convincing, this dynamic did not have that eternal, transcendent passion I was looking for. It's the eternal love you always dream of, and while the sequences are beautiful to look at, the love was still at a surface level in my opinion. I think Kartik Jairam as Satyajit did a brilliant job in this film. Rukmini, played by Nivashini Krishnan, looked absolutely beautiful, and even in her limited screen time had a confident presence in front of camera. But if I were to say on what is the soul of this movie, it is the dynamic between Lord Krishna and Satyajit. Satyabhama. While there will be many deliberations on what is the right depiction of Lord Krishna on screen, I must say Siddharth Gupta for his second feature film does an absolutely spectacular job in channelizing the stillness, the calmness and serenity required for Lord Krishna on the big screen. Even in moments of adversity, Siddharth exactly channelizes on how Lord Krishna would process information, both good and bad. And while there is still rough edges one can notice in moments of despair, I was genuinely impressed by his screen presence and dialogue delivery. There is one scene where he processes the dreadful news of Draupadi's Chirharan, and it is the best scene from the movie, both from a staging and performance POV. Sanskriti Jayana as Satyabhama is what guides this story. It's the most human emotions of devotion, of boundless love, beyond the confines of pragmatism. She is impulsive, naive, and fearless in many ways, and this is beautifully performed by Sanskriti. She has these sunken, sad eyes. She convinces you of being obsessed with Lord Krishna. The way she looks away, shy at the very prospect of being spoken to, irritated at being compared to anyone else, it's genuinely the heart of the film. Competent performances across the board and a fairly great job by relatively new actors in the industry. What's however important to note is that the movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes long, and that running time is just too short for the vast material the movie has to focus on. It can easily be a web series. This is one of the main reasons why the structure of the screenplay takes the shape of episodes with mini lessons versus a fully fleshed out screenplay. Conflicts are resolved way too fast and way too conveniently, making one feel like the maker should have focused on one of the chapters of Lord Krishna's life versus feeling compelled to shed light on everything from Vrindavan to Dwarka to Hastinapur to the Kurukshetra war and even the downfall of the Yadav clan and the submergence of Dwarka. There was just too much material, making the screenplay almost an abridged version of what Lord Krishna's experiences were, also leading to the emotions then being at an arm's length with the viewer. On the contrary, a more laser-focused approach on a chapter of his life would have made the film way more emotionally impactful. I wanted this to be another story in the industry like Mahavatar Narsimha, but that tale was extremely clear on its vision from start to end. Here the makers, I believe, just took on too much material for their own good. A valiant effort nonetheless, providing us, only a glimmer of what can be possible with limited resources and when the intention is earnest. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Krishnavataram. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handles are right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.